So usually the bracelet gives you 1.2% to 2.4%, and that's just the white bracelet. And if imagine if it's red one or purple one and maybe the blue one also gives you lots of speed when you put it in level 15. And in fact, if you watch my container now, I'm going to show you. It has 4.92% of movement speed and then 7.38% of stamina regeneration, stamina for 24.89. So usually if you run this to 120%, it also can give you almost to 4.99 or 4.98, which that little percentage that gives you the difference of 0.06%, it changes a lot. So there's some rolls that maybe that gives you more stamina regeneration or maybe more stamina, but I usually recommend lots of my friends or lots of people to roll it with the movement speed, because the main purpose of the bracelet is just gives you more movement speed. And usually the bracelet is the rarest artifact of the game because it gives you really high speed and then high stamina regeneration at level 15, especially the red one or the legendary one. It gives you crazy amount of speed, like 5.3 or 5.4% or 5.5 also. If you run with a bracelet, you can have really high stamina and then really high regeneration. So you also find them in an anomaly, which is the whirlpool, which is the trampoline. The trampolines are usually, if you go to guide and use anomalies and you go to gravitational, you can see there are this what type of spawns that can gives you the anomalies. So in this anomaly, which the trampoline, which when you jump on it, you jump higher, like the one that you see near inflow, you see near forge. I mean, all those type of anomalies that gives you this heightens your jump. This is where you can find it. Usually you're going to find lots of rose or white rose because they are the most common artifacts of that, and also the onions and viners and curse rose and proto onions. And the bracelet is usually the rarest artifact that you can find there. So obviously it's going to be really hard to find it because the probability of getting it is really low. Obviously the Whirlwind is only an exclusive artifact because you can get them only when there's the blizzard, which it's always present in December. I think also last year there was the blizzard event. And obviously this artifact is the speed build of the blizzard, and you can get this artifact. You get the Inferno, you get the lighter with the thermal. Usually it says the thermal. If you look the class of this artifact, you can get them in thermal, but usually you can get them wherever you want. I mean, wherever you can, because you can also get them to chemical anomalies, you can get them to thermal anomalies, you can get them to trampolines, gravitons, a whirlpool. So obviously if you get a legendary Whirlwind, you can go up to 5.3, I think 5.3, 5.4, but obviously I put it in second place because if you compare to the bracelet, you can get the stamina as third buff. With the Whirlwind, you can get instead reaction to burns as the buffs. You can get to movement speed and you get the reaction to burns, and then I think, if I am not wrong, you can also get the temperature. And obviously it's not that important to use because the temperature is only used maybe if you're in anomalies, and if you're in burning stages, you can also just get rid of them and you can run this and you can obviously just minimize the temperature that you are going to have, which is when you have, like, for example, Reflection, where you need a level 3 thermal protection, and if you're burning, imagine you're using a damaged Saturn and you need to go to a level 4 thermal zone of the Reflection, you can just obviously slow down the burning, and then because it's going to be thanks to the Whirlwind. So there are lots of type of movement speed artifact that give you some buff and debuffs. So the first two are just the normal ones, the speed ones, and obviously the second one that I can tell you is the carry rate artifacts plus the movement speed. Yeah, the movement speed artifact that gives you also carry rate is the first and the best, I think, is the spiral. So the spiral gives you, if you have it in white, obviously going to give you 1.6% of speed, from 0.8% to 1.66% of speed, and they can also give you carry weight. So it's really important when you are running really high speed build, like 2 bracelet and 3 artifacts is going to add 3 spirals. They're going to give you lots of speed buffs, and the best thing about this artifact is that it has only 0.5 or 1 debuffs of radiations, so it's really low. In fact, the artifact that I'm using right now is this, the 2 bracelet and then 3 spirals, which all of them gives me almost 1 of radiation. I mean, yeah, and 3 of them, they just give you 0.44 radiation, which I think the minimum radiation that will give you is if you reach 0.5 more than that, it's going to give you the radiation debuffs. But with the hive container, this is the best container that lots of people use when they use speed builds. So the spiral can usually get them in the electrophysical anomalies, which is the stasis. The stasis is the one that instantly kill you if you stay there for 2 seconds, I think, or 1 second. And they usually are in the pit side of the covenants and the pit side of duties, and they are also really present in Forge, in the middle part of Forge, and also in reflection. You can get this artifact with the mirror, with the shard, with the prism, and the atom, which are the most sought out artifacts in the game. The 4th artifact that I think it's the best is the Golden Prima. So the Golden Prima really helped me a lot during my early games in North Zone, because usually I run to Labyrinth and I needed money, I needed lots of rubbles to farm, and then obviously to buy weapons, to buy upgrades, to buy artifacts also in the auction. So Golden Prima gives you 1.4% and then 1.54% of speed. So that's already great as a startup, because if you level them up really well, like the blue Golden Prima in the game, when you need to farm, you usually need carry weight, and then you need also speed in order to run from your enemies, or also in order to be tactical in fighting PvPs. You need this artifact, the Golden Prima. You can get them in gravitational, and usually get them in the Whirlpool. The Whirlpool is the anomalies that is like sucking you up, and then you're going to be shredded and it's going to kill you. So once you stay there and you don't run from your place, you will get killed, and obviously it's like a tornado that's sucking you up and then kill you. So yeah, the Golden Prima, you can find them in this type of anomalies: Prima, the Shrimp, Cheirogen, Amberite, the Crystal, and Sponge. And you're going to be usually find Sponge or Prima, and Shrimp are really rare to see, because if you find a shrimp, they're also going to be like white, because that's the majority of the shrimps, and the purple shrimp is really rare to find. And I don't know why they usually cost a little bit. I mean, they're cheap in auction. I think they should sell them like over 3 million, 4 million. They just usually cost over 1,800,000 rubles. So I don't know why people are thinking like that. So I think shrimp is also an OP artifact. The other artifact instead that I'm going to recommend you is the Helium, because this is also a good artifact for beginners, because the Helium is usually one of the best artifacts also that you can get as a substitute for Spiral, and maybe for Golden Prima, and for the 2 best artifacts, which are the Bracelet and the Whirlwind. The Helium also gives you, the Helium is also almost like a bracelet, but it has little speed, maybe 1 speed or maybe 50 speed below from the bracelet, because the bracelet has if you compare the bracelet has 2.4 as a maximum speed, and the maximum speed of the Helium is 1.65 or 1.6, which obviously they're 60 or 80% less, but it's also a great artifact, because if you put them level 15, you can also have really good speed. I think it's going to go to 3. The maximum is 3, and 3 is really good buff as an artifact. I think it's 3 or 2.5. It depends on what, obviously it depends on what type of artifact is it. If it's uncommon, uncommon or special, exclusive or legendary and all that stuff, which obviously are really rare. The helium, you can find them in electrophysical, and they usually in the discharge, and lots of them, and you can find this type of artifacts, I mean of these anomalies, in barrier. Barrier is a common place where electrophysical anomalies are, and I don't know if in mercenary base or rise base or covenant base there are some, still don't know, but barrier has two hotspots for discharges, and they spawn lots of this type of artifact, but it's not that really common, obviously, because the helium is like almost the bracelet of the discharges, so they're quite uncommon, they're quite rare to find, and usually going to find another artifact which is going to be the Rattle. So after the helium, you also have another artifact, which is one of the best artifacts if you are someone who doesn't want to spend a lot of rubles in your speed build, and if you're lucky to find a purple type of it, it's going to be the Ice Hedgehog. Ice Hedgehog is, I think, one of the best artifacts also, which you can substitute for Bracelet or Whirlwind, because the Ice Hedgehog gives you a movement speed of 1.6% plus 1.76%, and then it also gives you stamina regeneration, which is almost like the Bracelet. So you're having like three artifacts that are almost similar. Obviously the Ice Hedgehog is the best substitute for the Bracelet, I think, because you can also use the helium, but the helium doesn't give you that 0.10% of the speed that the Ice Hedgehog gives you. I know that the stamina regeneration is less, which is 2.53%, but the helium gives you a really high amount of stamina regeneration, which is, it doesn't count in the end a lot, because you will have, I don't know, you can just drink some tonic, you can just drink some energy drink, you can just eat canned beans, and with the combination of those three food buff, they just give you lots of speed. You can get almost 3.7 speed and a good chunk of stamina regeneration. So if you want to recover fast, I can tell you that the helium is good, and the Ice Hedgehog obviously is the best for just moving speed if you want to concentrate only for the movement speed. So the Ice Hedgehog is usually found in the electrophysical and the discharge, like the helium. So the helium, you can find the helium, and then there it is, the Ice Hedgehog. So the helium and Ice Hedgehog are I usually see more Ice Hedgehog than helium, because I don't know why, but Ice Hedgehog isn't that rare like the helium. The helium it's pretty rare to find it. The Ice Hedgehog is, instead, I always find them. I have like over 8 of them. So Ice Hedgehog is pretty rare as an artifact, but not as rare as the helium. After that, you can have the Comet. You will have the Comet. The Comet is pretty common as an artifact. You're going to see a lot of this type of artifact, especially in electrophysical, also in the discharges, and you'll usually find lots of white type variants of it. This doesn't give you a stamina regeneration, but does give you a good amount of stamina, which is ranging from 16.2% to 17.82%. And obviously, you're going to have some debuff with its temperature. It's 1.35 or 0.5. It depends obviously of its rarity. You can also find it here in electrophysical discharges, and there it is, the Comet. The other artifact I can suggest you, if you obviously don't find all the other artifacts that I just told you, is maybe the battery. The battery gives you a really good amount of movement speed too, but lots of people are ignoring this. Many people just say maybe it's green or blue, I'm just going to sell it, but lots of people are ignoring the fact that the battery gives you 1.87, and the red batteries can gives you you up to 3.5 movement speed, I think. And I mean, I understand maybe it's not that good because it doesn't have any additional properties which gives you good stuff, like maybe the spiral that gives you movement speed, but then carry weight, so it's really important. So it does give you some additional buffs to your carry weight. So since you're going to be in the open world, it's going to be focused on the outside. I mean, when you're running and then looting and stuff. Yeah, so you're going to have lots of batteries also in the electrophysical discharges because they're quite common. Quite common ones are battery, the Comet, and then one of the most frustrating artifacts to find to me, not because it's uncommon, but it's because it doesn't show you, it isn't visible enough in artifact hunting, is the Rattle. So the Rattle is obviously the worst, I think, one of the worst artifacts they can get from the electrophysical discharges, because movement speed that it gives you is 0.88 plus or 0.96%, and that's considering it's blue. So the blue one, it gives you this type of speed, but then imagine the white one, it really gives you really low movement speed. So it's not the best type of artifact you can use, which that's why I told you that the battery is, it's like a sleeping monster if you use it. I mean, it's really good artifact. That's why I usually compare it to the battery, because the battery gives you, it doesn't give you 0.96%, and then battery doesn't give you stamina, but I think it's third buff, additional properties. But the Rattle, yes, they give you stamina, but then the movement speed instead, it's really bad. So having 0.96 maybe movement speed and then having lots of artifact, it isn't that good in the end, because it doesn't give you additional properties. I mean, it isn't that high to give you that speed boost that you want. Yeah, that's this artifact is usually found in electrophysical discharges also, which is like the Comet, the battery, the ice hedgehog, the Helium. I always find them. I always find it a lot, and it's usually frustrating to find because it's so small that you can't see it unless you have a trained eye, or maybe you're just really focusing on the ground and you'll find it. But sometimes I'm just running around and just maybe asking where the hell is this artifact, and then I find out that it's a Rattle. The other type of artifact that I really despise is the kettlebell. So the kettlebell is like a slap to your face, because yes, it gives you a movement speed which is ranging from 0.35% to 1.1%, but it gives you a vitality debuff from -16% to -8%. So it's not worth it, because since you're fighting enemies, your main target is fighting enemies and maybe surviving and eating those bullets, is that, and not instead dying fast. And so this is one of the worst artifacts that I can see, because it's the worthless for me. And I keep them, maybe because if even it's a purple, I keep them because I just like them for their rarity. But for usage, I never used one kettlebell ever in this from my 700 hours of games. I really never used it. So yeah, this is the worst artifact for me. And even though it gives you thermal protection and maybe temperature, it's not really good, because it's all for the vitality. There are some artifacts that aren't really focused on just using movement speed, but they can also give you or provide you some resistance or protection to some anomalies. So one of them is the sun. So the sun artifact is usually a thermal artifact, and it gives you, the white one already gives you 1.01%. I remember, because obviously my artifact level is level 2. So there usually this usually isn't that run in the game, or maybe from the open world, because it isn't really that important unless you're maybe using Berluga. But in the end, people are usually using the atom to counter all effects of the anomalies of the artifacts. I think the Radiator isn't that important as an artifact unless you just want to try it, maybe just to see them for curiosity, but they don't give you a lot of movement speed. So I maybe tried one time, yeah, but it wasn't really good experience because it gives you 1% of speed and at level 0, and it's like, say, it's like using a rattle at this point, a blue rattle or maybe a purple rattle. So they aren't really that important to me and they're useless. Okay, so you usually find the Radiator in one of these anomalies, but you usually find them in lighters, not in maybe Inferno. They usually are in the lighters, and I don't know why here it doesn't show in I don't know why here it doesn't show in the description, but usually you can get them in the lighters. So the last artifact instead that also provide you some additional buffs, protection, is the Eye of the Storm. So the Eye of the Storm gives you 0.75% of speed or 1.5% of speed, which is, I mean, it's almost like an ice hedgehog. And if you get the blue one, I think you can get 1.65% as a maximum speed. And this too is good, but I still don't know what its third properties because I didn't check. So yeah, Eye of the Storm gives you maximum of 0.5% of speed. So maybe you can run it to 2.5 maximum speed, or maybe 2.7, I don't know. It just always obviously depends on how much your roll or your artifact rolls are, because you can also be unlucky and don't get anything. So the Eye of the Storm, you can find them in it's thermal, but in the reality it's just, you can find them anywhere, like the Spire, the Whirlwind, the Cross, the Leaded Glass, the Frost, the Chili. And yeah, the Eye of the Storm is usually found everywhere. You can find them in thermal, you can find them in chemical, you can find them in electrical, everywhere where there is an anomaly. So there are instead 3 interesting artifacts that gives you also speed builds. So the Polyhedron is usually used in PvP. I mean, if you're a sniper and maybe want to snipe people from afar and maybe to be able to tank a shot from your enemy, or just to reduce the effect of the damage which your enemy does to you, and also to counter the bleeding effect, you can use the Polyhedron, because the Polyhedron counters damages that reach over 130 or maybe 82 units. Like for example, if someone shoots me with 82 units of damage, they're going to decrease. So someone with L9 sniper, or maybe with the VSSK or something that just goes more than 82 units, is going to counter that effect. Is going to lessen the damage of that weapon, and it's going to usually erase the bleeding effect. That's why lots of people, when you shoot them, you'll see like some green stuff on them, which means they are sniped, and that means they were hit by a sniper. That means also they're using a Polyhedron in the build. But not only that, is that this artifact gives you movement speed. It can gives you 2.6 movement speed if it's a red one, or legendary, I don't remember, but they can give you a high amount of movement speed for an artifact that gives already 2 buffs: stamina, and then the lesson of the damage from snipers. So, and then you also have 2.6 or 2.4, 2.2, I don't remember how many, but it's usually in the range of 1.8 to 2 point or something. It's going to give you lots of protection against the snipers, so you can also move fast if you run other speed artifacts, and you can also just change your position and then just snipe other people, and then tanking all of their shots. And obviously there's a cooldown on this artifact, because obviously if there was no cooldown, it's going to be obviously overpowered. And it usually, the Polyhedron can have up to also 12 seconds of reload, which is really rare. One time I found a blue Polyhedron, and it gives you almost, I think it gives you 16 seconds, which is really low for a Polyhedron. And yeah, that's why the Polyhedron is really good as an artifact, or something that you use in sniper mode. Yeah, so the Polyhedron, you can find them in biochemical. Obviously in aspect you can get them here, but I don't know why it's not written here. Let's change. Or maybe in biochemical. Yeah, it's biochemical. You find them here, and you'll get Polyhedron. You usually find in this type of anomalies. So The other one instead is the Snake Eye. The Snake Eye is actually one of the best artifact also you can run, and I'm going to explain you why. Because it also gives you vitality, and if you look, the buff of this artifact is give you 1% or 1.9% of vitality, which if you're using it in PvPs, in standoff, clan wars, or maybe in open world, it gives you additional life. So percentage of your life, maybe 1.9 isn't that much, but if you run it with lots of artifact also, maybe 3 Snake Eye or 1 Sun and then 1 Chili or 1 Viburnum, is going to be really good. Pair this to a high bullet resistant armor like the Apostles for the Covenants, the Granite for the Duty or the Frontier, and obviously other types of high bullet resistant armors for each other faction, or the other two factions, which are the Mercenaries and then the Arise. This is going to be really OP. It's going to be really overpowered because this also, as a third buff, it gives you movement speed. So for example, if I use 3 Snake Eyes, I can usually just counter the effect of the debuff of a Centurion. Maybe if I'm using a Centurion, so a full Centurion with 3 Snake Eyes, maybe it's going to be the movement speed. I think it also gives you 2.7 if you have it in pink or red, I don't remember. It can get you to 2.7 as speed, movement speed. They're just going to nullify the debuff of the movement speed of the Centurion. You can also use them in the SBS tank, or maybe you can use them against the debuffs of the Apostles, the Granite, and the other armors of special armors of the Mercenary and the Rise faction. So instead of 15, I think it's going to be 15% and 30%. 15% for movement speed and 30% for the stamina. So paired with this is going to be, imagine you get 3 of them. So if imagine you had a 2.7% roll of the movement speed, so you multiply them for 3, you're going to have almost 8.1%, and it's going to give you only 7% of punishment as a debuff. So, and then you also have lots of health. I see a lot of people using this build that I just told you, and they're running like 22%, 24% of HP vitality, so they're really hard to kill, and usually, since they have also high bullet resistance armor, they're just really stupidly hard to kill. It's going to be really useful in PvPs and maybe in Lubeck and Stillwaters. I mean, Stillwater is not that useful, but yeah, you can also use them with armors that usually have 300 or maybe 400 bullet resistance. They're just going to be really OP, and no wonder you're like shooting them in the head like with 12 bullets and they still don't die. But that's because they're running this type of builds. So the Snake Eye, you can find them also in the biochemicals, in the aspect, and they're pretty rare. They're really rare to find, especially if you want the purple one. Is really rare, and they cost like 8 million. They used to cost 4 million, 5 million. Now they just gone up, and because it's crazy, just crazy artifact. The last one instead is the Amberite. So the Amberite is not that common as a build for movement speed, but it's for carry weight artifact. I mean, it's usually used for a carry weight. If you have the purple one, it gives you almost 20, maybe 26. I don't know the maximum, but with this you can get them like the level 1. You can get 15 carry weight, so it's really a lot, and that's why this artifact is also used with some builds. Like I used to play when I went to Labyrinth, and I had only the Soviet backpack, so I paired this with the Golden Prima, and then I paired this with the Iliac and then the Proto Onion, so it counters the effects. And yeah, I really run with it. There is an additional buff for this artifact, and obviously it's movement speed, otherwise it's not going to be here. It gives you 1.5% of speed if you're lucky to get this, and range from 0.75% and then 1.5% of speed. So it's going to be really useful to you since you just want to farm and you just want that little bit of movement speed, and you just run with this. You can also run with this maybe with your mule, using the hive containers, so it also counters the psi emissions. But in the end, if you really want just carry weight and then the movement speed, I just want to tell you that you should run either the Golden Prima or the Spiral. The Spiral is the best for movement speed, but not good for carry weight. The Golden Prima is the best for movement speed. I mean, not the best of the best, but it's the best for maybe balancing the movement speed and then the carry weight. So yeah, so that's why I usually run either one of these, and I usually just run with the Spiral since it's the best build that you can have in the game. This type of builds. Okay, so the Amberite, you can find this Amberite in gravitational anomalies. So you go to I think you can get them to whirlpools, and usually they're the one that, like I told you before, it's the one that sucks you up and then just shreds you to pieces when you aren't far enough from it. So that's all artifact that I can tell you. That's all artifact that I can recommend you. I saw also in Stalcraft maybe some artifacts that gives you additional buff, movement speed buff, but there are no other else artifact that can give you that type of movement speed. Maybe hidden buff as movement speed, and yeah, that's just all of them.
Если вы собрались на вылазку, то прослушайте внимательно. Показатели давления просто зашкаливают. Температура... Погодите, прекратила падать. Кажется, пронес... Да ёп! Термометр замерз! В общем, если вам кажется, что холодает, то вам не кажется.